Hi everyone. Today we're going to be doing an introduction to food chains and food webs. Y'all should have your science journals out taking notes as we go through this whole thing. And if you have any questions, we'll go over them tomorrow in class. So let's start with some definitions, make sure we're getting them down. They don't have to be these exact words, but I would definitely like to see something very similar. So for a food chain, it's going to be a series of organisms that are each dependent on the next as a source of food. So in our last lecture, we learned about the series of what an organism is and everything that makes up populations and organisms. So this is going to continue off of that, and we'll go over some more definitions as we go along. A food web, it's going to be interlocking and interdependent food chains. So we're going to take a bunch of these series and a bunch of these connections, and we're going to connect them all to make one big food web. Each food chain is going to be made up of trophic levels. So these levels are going to be groups that are part of a food chain that share the same nutritional relationships, and their primary source of energy is all going to be the same as well. So in a food chain, there are different levels. We usually start with the autotrophs. So that's where we're going to get our energy from. They're typically self-feeders, and they'll make their own food. So a plant is going to be considered a photoautotroph. They make their energy from the sun, and this allows them to make the organic compounds such as sugars. And they do this through photosynthesis, which we should have that definition from the last lecture. Then there's also another type of autotroph called a chemoautotroph. These make energy using chemicals, or use the energy from chemicals, and this allows them to make the organic compounds that they would use, very similar to the photoautotrophs, but they're going to use the chemicals instead. Please make sure that you are getting these definitions down and that you are taking notes. I'd like to see if you could come up with more examples for these two types of autotrophs. A heterotroph are also known as other feeders. So they feed off of the autotrophs. They can't use energy from the light or from chemicals to make their own food. They have to eat the autotrophs in order to get the energy that they need. So examples would be humans. We are heterotrophs. Any kind of animal, many different kinds of fungi, and many different types of bacteria are also considered heterotrophs. We all make our own energy. So with a food chain, you can see in the picture, we start with the sun, which is our energy provider. And then we'll come to a producer. A producer is an autotrophic organism. So they have to make their own energy. So they'll get their energy from the sun, just like we've gone over in the last slide. But this will serve as a source of food for other organisms in the food chain. So after that, we have our consumer. Our consumers are organisms of ecological food chain, which receive energy by consuming other organisms. So this grasshopper is going to come over and it's going to eat the grass. The grass got its energy from the sun. Now the grasshopper can use the energy that the plant you got from the sun in order to help with its bodily functions. Same with the shrew. The shrew's going to come over and it's going to eat the grasshopper. The grasshopper now got a fraction of the energy that comes from the producer. The producer got its energy from the sun. So it's going to go all the way down through the tertiary consumer in order to allow the tertiary consumer to get the energy it needs. Unfortunately, the tertiary consumer is not going to get all of the energy that came from the sun originally. It's only going to get a fraction. The amount is it's a 10% rule. So the producer is going to use part of its energy that it got from the sun to help keep it alive. So the grass has to be able to get rid of any toxins. It has to be able to grow. So it's going to use part of the energy. So the grasshopper's not going to get all of that energy. And the shrew's not going to get all the energy that the grasshopper got from the grass. And it's just going to keep going down to where the tertiary consumer is going to get a very small amount of the energy from the sun. And you can see here, this is a food web. Food webs are going to be made up of interlocking and interdependent food chains. So you can see all the different places where each of the different colors interconnect. And you can see it starts down here with these at the bottom. So the rotifers are going to go to the cyclopods, and it's just going to keep going and going and going all throughout this entire web. It can get very difficult to follow in some of them, but they also have the same different levels. It's just different animals can play, or different organisms can play a different role depending on where it is in the food web. Another part of the food chain or food web that often isn't even listed is called a decomposer. These organisms break down dead organic material. Something's going to break down all the bones that are left over, any waste that is left. It's got to be broken down, and a decomposer is going to do that. They're often their very own trophic level on a food pyramid, or an energy pyramid is sometimes what it's referred to. And that is how any leftovers are going to get broken down. And that's going to be recycled back into the earth as different energy. It could help enrich the soil to help grow more grass to be the producer. So that way we can keep going through the food chains and the food webs and start all over. So that is all I have for right now. Make sure you've taken notes, and if you have any questions, please be prepared with them in class tomorrow. Have a great night, everyone.